All right, let's go live. How's it going, everybody? Chuck Holton here, coming to you from, where am I? Bogotá, Colombia. We got here about 1 o'clock this morning. There's a large anti-Trump protest that's been called by President Petro of Colombia here in Bogotá today, just around the corner from this 200-year-old hotel that I'm staying in. And so we're going to be there to cover that. But that's not what this live is about. Actually, we're going to do another live this evening when the protest starts, so you'll be able to see what that looks like on the street. So you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed, make sure you have the notifications turned on, and you'll get notified when we get ready to go live about probably closer to 5 p.m. Eastern time today. But right now, what we're talking about is the seizure of two more tanker ships. This is breaking news. Two more tankers have been seized by the United States, and one of them is the Bella One that has been evading capture for a couple of weeks now, leading the U.S. Coast Guard on a very slow speed chase across the North Atlantic at about 8 or 9 knots. Now, I have a video of the, let's see if I can find that. I have a video of the takedown, apparently. I'm sorry, this is the takedown of the other ship. We'll get to that one in a second. This is the MV Bella One. So what you're seeing here is a Blackhawk helicopter hovering over the ship. And the way that they got onto the ship was by fast roping. This is not from rappelling down on a rope where you would have a harness and you'd snap into a rope and you'd slide down. This is where they just throw out a rope that's about as big around as your wrist. And the guys with gloves on jump out and slide down the rope like it's a fireman pole. And then you can see them going up the stairs here and taking the ship. Now, this is significant. This is remarkable. Now, this is U.S. Special Operations Forces assisting the Coast Guard in taking down this ship. Now, one of the things that I noticed here as they were doing this is an infrared camera look at that Blackhawk helicopter that was coming in. And it makes you wonder why they didn't do this sooner. Why couldn't they have done this a long time ago? They have their reasons, I'm sure, but they finally got around to it. And doing it now is going to be a real stick in the eye to Russia, because Russia was trying to escort this ship with a submarine that they sent out there to let this ship make it into Russian port. Now you see these guys sliding down the rope here and then jumping off. The first guy comes off pretty fast. Second guy, not so much. He doesn't look like he's done that before. Third guy's pretty fast. And this is significant. I mean, the reason I'm commenting on the speed that they go down, because one of the ways you can tell if these people are well-trained special operators or not is how fast they come out of that helicopter. But that last guy right there came down pretty slow, and it looked like he only had a pistol, so he was probably a Coast Guardsman or something like that. But you see them up on the superstructure of the ship. They are detaining the crew, and they're taking down that large ship filled with oil. Now, again, here's the timeline here. Several weeks ago, this ship was on its way to Venezuela, and then when they took the other ship, the first ship the United States grabbed, this one turned around and hightailed it back north. The United States sent a Coast Guard cutter after it. I have some footage of that Coast Guard ship in a minute. And they started this slow speed chase across the Atlantic. On the way, the Bella One changed its name to the, I think they call it the Meridian or something like that. It was, started with an M. And they painted a Russian flag on the side of the ship. That was to try to claim, hey, we're under the protection of Russia, so don't mess with us. That didn't stop the Coast Guard. Then the ship reflagged itself by, this just filling out a form online, basically, reflagged itself as a Russian ship, flagged in Russia. That didn't stop the chase either. And then Russia was putting out the word, like, don't mess with this ship. This is ours. We're not going to allow this to be taken. And President Trump just said, nope, not going to happen. We're taking this ship no matter what. And so he did. He ordered the Coast Guard and the Special Operations Forces to go take that ship out. They finally caught up with it. This is footage from the Coast Guard. Turn that off. But you can see here the operations that they're doing. I don't know if that was I'm not sure what they're doing there, but that's very likely the helicopter, or it's a helicopter just like the one that went and dropped those guys on the Bella One. That's a Seahawk helicopter, I believe. So anyway, you can see these. This is the Coast Guard ship that was involved in that. Now, then also today, the United States took out a second ship, and I want to show you that one. This is, let's see, I have the name of it here. This one's called the Sophia, the motor tanker Sophia. So they took out the MT Bella One and the MT Sophia. They were either last docked in Venezuela or en route. So the Bella One was en route to Venezuela and then turned around. The Sophia had been docked in Venezuela and tried to leave. Under President Trump, the U.S. Coast Guard tactical teams work closely with their counterparts at the Department of War, Department of Justice, and State, and use their specialized expertise to conduct these operations and conduct 2 safe, effective boardings within hours of each other. This is a statement from Christy Noem. One of these tankers, the MT Bella One, has been trying to evade the Coast Guard for weeks, even changing its flag and painting a new name on the hull while being pursued in a desperate and failed attempt to escape justice. The heroic crew of the USCGC Monroe, that's the ship that I was just showing you, the Coast Guard ship, pursued this vessel across the high seas and through treacherous storms, keeping diligent watch and protecting our country with the determination and patriotism that makes Americans proud. These brave men and women deserve our nation's thanks for their selfless devotion to duty. The world's criminals are on notice. You can run, but you can't hide. We will never relent in our mission to protect the American people and disrupt the funding of narco-terrorism wherever we find it, period. This is our country's greatest fighting force at their best. This is America first at sea. Now, if you really, kudos to President Trump for ordering this. If you really wanted to take a bite out of global narco trafficking, terrorism, human trafficking, slave labor or forced labor, because a lot of the people that work on these ships are there and they're not getting paid and they're not allowed to leave. So there's like modern day slavery on these ships. If you really wanted to impact all those 3 things in a big way, confiscating these tankers is one of the best ways to do it. And that's because every one of these tankers, if they're full of oil, is a sitting duck that represents about 150 to maybe $200 million worth of oil, and that money will go to bad actors. it's already, all their costs are sunk into it. The cost of taking it out of the ground, the cost of distributing it, the cost of whatever. It's all in that ship, and everything that happens to that oil after that ship goes to China or Iran or wherever it goes, India, is pure profit for the narco terrorists. So they're taking a massive bite. I mean, grabbing a shipment of cocaine rarely will approach the amount of dollar value of one of these ships. So this makes what, 4 ships now that the Trump administration has grabbed. And I wanted to know, like, how exactly this is done, because the first thing the U.S. has to do, they can't just grab any ship. There has to be a legal justification for doing so. So the first thing they have to do is find a legal hook to be able to grab the ship. They don't usually just grab random foreign ships because they feel like it. So the way the court process works is they do a civil forfeiture seizure warrant. The DOJ files a forfeiture case in federal court and argues that the ship is tied to sanctions evasion, terrorism financing, fraud, false documentation, money laundering, or other federal crimes. Then a judge issues a seizure warrant. This is exactly what they've publicly described in the recent seizures of the tankers that we've been talking about. Then also, if a ship is one of those ghost ships, then it's considered a stateless vessel, and it's not legally flagged under any other country, and then they have a fake flag or something like that, then they can be treated as stateless under international law, and that makes it much, much easier for the United States to get the authority they need, or to claim the authority they need to board and take the ship. And this is something that the DOJ and the Coast Guard does pretty commonly on the high seas, but you just didn't start hearing about it until we started grabbing these ultra large crude carrying tankers. If the ship is legally flagged, then we would need to participate in some sort of cooperative enforcement in which we contact the country that they're flagged under. Might be Panama, might be Guyana, whatever. And we get them to consent to the United States boarding that ship, or we get that country to revoke the registry because of they're trafficking in sanctioned oil or whatever. So the Panamanians or the Guyanese just say, we're not going to claim that ship anymore. They revoke the registry. Now it's a stateless ship, and then we can go grab it. So, and the last but not least, there's something called traditional wartime authority, which is where in a declared war or recognized armed conflict, then you get into basically piracy or something like that, where American ships, privateers, have done this for centuries, can go and can take any ships that belong to the enemy, whether they're commercial or merchant ships or military ships. Okay, that's a different legal universe, and we haven't seen that in a long time. So once they believe they have the ability to legally grab a ship, then they track the ship via its automatic, what do they call it? It's AIS. I forget what AIS stands for. But a lot of times the AIS is turned off. So they'll have to find it with a satellite or a drone or something like that. There are other, they call them maritime domain awareness systems if there's let's say there's a UK Navy ship that spots one of these things, and they call the Americans and let them know, oh, hey, we just saw the MV Bella or the MT Bella 1 go by the UK or something. So then that would be another way that we could find it. Once we find it, so we get the legal justification first, then we find it, then we fix it and finish it. So what we do is, we're not going to sink the ship. That would be a environmental nightmare. We basically send the boarding party. We have to, we try to establish communications with the ship so they don't just show up and drop in. They start hailing the ship and saying, heave to and stop where you are. We're basically pulling them over on the high seas. We present the authority that we have to do so by sending them a copy of the warrant. And then we send troops or Coast Guardsmen over to board the ship, secure the bridge, secure the engineering spaces like the engine room and things like that. And then we start going through their documents. We take evidence just like you would in a law enforcement operation, their ship logs, the electronics, bills of lading, charter agreements, things like that. And then maintain safe operation of the vessel, probably allow the crew to continue to operate the vessel. I think it is possible we could bring in another crew, but I think most of the time we just keep the soldiers on board or the Coast Guardsmen, and we just guard the people that are on the ship and let them keep doing their thing and just make sure that they take the ship where we want it to go. So I believe, so they would call that a custodial crew if we put our own crew aboard. But then it's sailed to a designated port. The cargo is then secured, and the legal forfeiture case proceeds from there. So the legal ramifications for the people who own this ship and for the crew and for the United States are as follows. For the ship owners or the owners of the oil, we're talking civil forfeiture. The United States sues to take the property. Yeah, you can literally go United States versus oil cargo on the MT Bella One. They can actually have a case like that. The owners can contest that in court. And if they lose, the United States can then sell or dispose of the ship and the cargo, seize the proceeds, and put it right into the U.S. Treasury. They do that all the time with terrorists and drug traffickers in the United States and elsewhere. They seize their assets, they sell them at auction, and they put the money right back into the work that they're doing. So for the crew, it's not as bad. Most of the crews are hired labor. They're often not charged unless there's some evidence that they knowingly participated in criminal conduct. That's why I wonder about the crew of the MT Bella One, because they've been running away and not heeding the instructions we gave them to heave to. And so some of those people could go to jail and be prosecuted for criminal conduct, falsifying records, disabling the AIS, etc. It's not uncommon that we would detain them for a period of time, interview them, and then decide whether or not to file criminal charges against any of the crew. If we don't file those charges, then we just drop the crews off somewhere and they get to go home. Now, there could be ramifications for the United States. If the seizure is seen as lacking jurisdiction, lacking a valid warrant, or violating international law, then the United States risks diplomatic blowback, litigation from foreign courts, reciprocal seizures by our adversaries like Iran and Russia, or accusations of piracy. Personally, I don't think the Trump administration really cares what anybody thinks. They're doing what they want to do because this is America. Do what I want. Now, I want to go on because in terms of Venezuela, hey, thank you, MM. That's very kind of you. In terms of what this means for Venezuela is two things. it continues to put a damper on their ability to fund their government by selling this oil. But more importantly than that, this is making it much harder for them to even extract the oil because they can't just shut the pumps off. I've explained this before. The pumps could go off, and then they're not going to come back on. They need the United States help to turn the Trump pumps back on. There's not a lot of American oil companies right now, despite what President Trump has said, that are real excited about going back into Venezuela because they have no rule of law. It's a corrupt culture. They're very remote areas in the Orinoco belt down there in the Amazon. And so, where they take that stuff out, the crude is very difficult to extract. It's very corrosive. There's a lot of reasons why the United States oil companies would be like, we'll take a pass on this one. They probably wouldn't see a profit for 5 years or more if they really started developing it. So they'd sink. It sounds like, according to Peter Zeihan, it sounds like it would take American oil companies maybe up to $200 billion of sunk costs before they saw any real benefit from the oil. And that's massive. That's a lot for any country to swallow. Okay. So with that in mind, they have to keep those pipelines going, or those pumps going. But to do that, they have to have someplace to put the oil, and they only have a limited amount of storage capacity in Venezuela on the ground. So they rely on these tankers coming and going and filling up with oil and taking their oil away. Otherwise, if they run out of places to put it, then they're stuck. And you might even see them just dumping it on the ground just to keep the pumps running, because they're in a real bad way if the pumps stop going. So I'm trying to go through here real quick and look at questions. Folks, we do have a sponsor today. It's Brightcore Nutrition, and I'm going to play a little interesting kind of infomercial that I put together at the end of this today. But if you're interested, you're going to want to stick around for that. Folks, we got 2,500 people online, and let me just ask you to go hit that like button while you're thinking about it. I know I always forget. I get engrossed in video, and I forget to hit that like button, but it really does help the channel punch above its weight. With the channel, we've got now 240 something subscribers, 240,000 something subscribers, which is amazing. Thank you very much to all of you who have subscribed. But we are getting the kind of views that a channel much larger than ours, maybe 350, 400, 500,000 views. I've even seen some channels with over 1 million subscribers that have fewer views than we do. And that all comes down to you guys engaging in the chat and hitting the like button and making sure you're subscribing if you're not subscribed. So thank you very much for doing that. Nathan is at a dinner party tonight, so I am producing on my own today. So I'm going through here to try to star your questions. Question. It does help, folks, if you put the questions in all caps. If you don't put it in all caps, there's a good chance I'm going to scroll right by it. So I see we got a bunch of questions here, and I'm just, so give me just a second, because I want to make sure that I don't miss any. All right. So, and again, if you do have a question, make sure it's in all caps, and then it'll be easier for me to see. Now, President Trump says that he's made a deal with Delcy Rodriguez, who's now the acting president of Venezuela, to get their oil and they're going to give it to the United States. They're talking about, I think he said 30 to 50 billion barrels of oil. Now, let's listen to the Energy Secretary as he talks about this, and he'll give you all the information you need to know. Take a look.
The president recently announced your role in executing the plan to turn over between 30 to 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the U.S. We learned about that as an investment community yesterday. What can you share about the recent announcement and talk about the plans to execute this?
Yeah, so look, I'm working directly in cooperation with the Venezuelans. And we are going to, this is the crude that's backed up in onshore storage and that's in offshore floating storage. We're just going to get that crude moving again and sell it, just like we did in our businesses. We're going to market the crude coming out of Venezuela, first this backed up stored oil, and then indefinitely going forward, we will sell the production that comes out of Venezuela into the marketplace. We will have U.S. as the supplier of diluent that's got to get down there to enable that production. We're going to have that flowing again. And as we make progress with the government, you know, we'll enable the importing of parts and equipment and services to kind of prevent the industry from collapsing, stabilize the production, and then as quickly as possible start to see it growing again. And of course, in the long run, create the conditions that the major American companies that were there before, or maybe that weren't there before but want to be there, will go in. The resources are immense. This should be a wealthy, prosperous, peaceful energy powerhouse. That's the plan.
Okay, so that was what he came up with. Let's go back here. That was what he said, that we are going to actually assist Venezuela. We put them in a position where they don't have enough storage for the oil they're taking out of the ground. So President Trump has said, hey, we'll help you take care of that problem by sending oil tankers down there that we own, but we're going to take a cut of the oil profits, a big cut. And so it's a business deal. I don't know how you feel about that. How you tell me in the chat, tell me how you feel about President Trump's idea here. Now, he said in a social post yesterday that he is going to personally control what happens to the money that we gain from this oil. I did see one kind of tweet out there yesterday saying that 11 oil tankers had left the United States en route to Venezuela. And now Delcy Rodriguez apparently has agreed to this. And the reason she's agreed to this is because if she doesn't, they're going to be much worse off. She's got no real good options as far as she's concerned. And so this is the least bad option. But it's got to be burning her behind to deal with President Trump. She hates President Trump with a passion. She is a communist, worse than Maduro. And, you know, there was a girl that came on Fox News, a Venezuelan girl, talking about this, just how bad Delcy Rodriguez is. This is a real short clip, but I wanted to play this for you. Take a look.
Radical than Maduro. She's actually the daughter of a Venezuelan terrorist who kidnapped an American businessman and was eventually killed by police forces. That really shows you how she's a true ideologue, but she's very smart and worldly, and she knows how to handle herself. So right now, we Venezuelans fear that they're going to leave us with Delcy Rodriguez, who we know as our chief of torture.
So they call her their chief of torture. She was in charge, apparently, of the helicoid, I think they call it, the prison that where the torture took place in Caracas. Very dark place, terrible, terrible place. Some of the things that come, the stories that come out of that place is mind-boggling. It's just so brutal. So Delcy Rodriguez, as the president of Venezuela, does not leave the United States much better off. It certainly does not leave the Venezuelans any better off. Since she took power just 2 days ago, she's been cracking down on the Venezuelans hard. I mean, very hard. Not only has she been sort of cleaning house in a purge of people that she thinks might be happy that Maduro was taken out. at the very least, or even maybe part of it, part of the operation that had somehow taken part in it. For example, the general who was in charge of the presidential guard and the Venezuela military's counterintelligence agency, which is called the DGCIM. His name is Major General Javier Marzano Tabata, and he was fired, but not only fired, but they made him destitute in, that fast, charging him with critical negligence, possible betrayal, and loss of control over key security forces. They argue that it consolidates power under the Rodriguez faction of the government, neutralizes any pro-Maduro elements inside the armed forces, and centralizes intelligence control as signals to Washington, and signals to Washington that Delcy Rodriguez now holds real authority in Caracas. Now, they use criminal biker gangs to do their real dirty work, to oppress the people. These criminal biker gangs are partially funded by the Maduro regime. They also get funding from extortion, robbery, all sorts of criminal enterprises, trafficking, sex trafficking, all kinds of things like that inside Venezuela. And they are used, like I say, to do Maduro's dirty work. They were seen yesterday in their thousands riding through the streets on their motorcycles of Caracas, brandishing their firearms. And you can see them here. This is somebody filmed this in Caracas yesterday. Just look at those thousands of motorcycles. And they are apparently going all but door to door, looking at people's phones, confiscating people's phones to look for anybody who made any kind of posts that were jubilant about Maduro getting taken out. And then those people are going to get tortured to death. I mean, they're going to get disappeared in very short order. All right, so we need to get over to our questions, and I'm going to have to hurry through these because I've got a bunch of Newsmax hits today, starting in about 10 minutes. So I got to get going. So first question is, which military segment is more deadly or hardcore or awesome? Army, Green Beret, Special Forces, or Army Rangers? They're apples to oranges because every special operations unit has a different mission. So Special Forces under the Green Berets think of them as the teachers. They go to a third world country. They help help the government raise an army, or the rebel groups raise an army. Then they help train them and get them out there in the field, and they work more as advisors, okay? Now, they can do other things. There's some overlap here. Army Rangers are the kill people and break things people, and that's all we ever trained to do when I was in the military. Just kill people and break things and be very, 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 very lethal at that job. They're the kickoff team, and they're the bouncers that the military brings in when there's a delicate mission like Delta Force just did in Venezuela, where Delta Force needs security as they go into a building to take out a high-value target. They usually put Rangers around the building to secure that, because if anybody deals with the Rangers or comes up against the Rangers, they're going to lose. The Rangers are the most lethal fighting force on planet Earth, and that they're designed to be that way. They're the president's kickoff team. And maybe I'm a little partial since I was a Ranger for 4 years, but that's my understanding of how that works. Okay. Thank you very much for the £9.99 PC. Appreciate you. Why would they need the oil in Russia as they have their own oil they're selling? They won't. Venezuela wasn't selling their oil to Russia. Venezuela was using Russian Ghost Fleet tankers to sell oil to India, China, and other places that were buying what they thought was legal oil from, say, Azerbaijan or something like that. But it had been mixed with Venezuelan sanctioned oil at sea in these ship-to-ship transfers. So that's where Russia comes into that. Okay. Next, is all the things Trump is doing, such as seizing Russian ships, going to get us in a war? I don't think so. That's the best answer I can give you there. Next question. Why do channels such as yours not contact or return contact of U.S. folks in the countries you go to? Not sure what you're talking about. I talk to gringos wherever I go, and I get contacted by gringos wherever I go. I got stopped in the Amazon a couple months ago in September when I was in Guyana. I was on this boat dock out in the jungle, and this guy comes over and goes, "Oh, hey, Chuck, how's it going?" I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, I watch your show all the time." So no, I do have contact with people around the globe. What happened to the sub? Well, I know we've got Navy aircraft out there looking for that Russian sub. I think it got chased off, but they're talking about the Russian sub that was sent to escort the Bella One and try to keep the Americans from taking it. This is the big part of this story. This is the big takeaway from this story. The U.S. and Russia just actually went head to head over this ship. There wasn't any kinetic fighting going on there, but it was like a tug of war, and the United States won, and won big. The Russians backed down when we stood up to them. And so that is a great lesson, and it really loses face for Russia. So this is the most important thing you can take away from that story. To rope all of this together with Russia, China, and Venezuela, do you have any update on the protests in Iran? I do, but I don't have time to do that. I'll probably talk about Iran next week when I'm not here talking about what's going on in Venezuela. Is it true the Russian Navy sent a submarine to escort the tanker? Yes, that's true. Do you think there may be a lot of drugs on these ships? No, they're carrying something more valuable, which is millions of barrels of oil. If they're en route to Venezuela, does that mean they're empty? Could be, or it could be that they were planning to do a ship-to-ship transfer. It's a good question. Peter Zeihan is wrong 90% of the time. He's a never Trumper. He is a never Trumper, and I don't agree with him all the time. But you got to hand. If you listen to that guy, you got to hand it to him. He knows the oil industry. If he's talking about oil, you should listen. He knows what he's talking about. He has been wrong on some things, but most things, I've been following him for years. And again, I don't agree with everything he says, and I certainly don't agree with his politics, but you got to give credit where credit is due. He is smarter than you and me on these topics. And so I listen to him and then kind of make my own decision on what to believe. Is the embassy in Venezuela open? The U.S. embassy is not open in Venezuela. We haven't been open there in a long time. Do you think World War III is going to start between the United States and Russia over the oil tanker? No, but I think World War III is already underway, and this is what it looks like. It's not necessarily going to be like World War II. Okay, that's all the questions I have time for, folks, because I've got to get out there in the town square of Bogotá and do some Newsmax hits. I'm going to be on Newsmax almost every hour for the next several hours. So if you want to see more of my reporting, go over there. And then I'll be live on Faith Nation at 4 p.m. Eastern for the Christian Broadcasting Network as well. And then I will be live again here on YouTube on this channel at about 5 p.m. Talking about what's going on here in Bogotá. So stay tuned, folks, and make sure you're subscribed so you can get contacted when we're about to go live. Also, please go to chuckholton.com. You can get a lot of extra content there. You can find out information about our tours. You can actually travel with me to Panama and go see the Panama Canal, go see the places where the invasion took place, and get a massage, go see a waterfall or two, take a hike, get some souvenirs and some really good food, and hang out with me and my wife and come see my monkeys and that sort of thing. So that's in April. We've got maybe 2 rooms left. So if you're interested, you better get on it quick. Just send an email to info@holtonnews.com, and we will get you the information you need to know. Now, last but not least, you want to stick around for this, because this is some good information that I unearthed about microplastics and how you can actually help yourself get rid of the microplastics in your body, because there's some serious microplastics there. So take a listen to this from Brightcore Nutrition.
I've been going down a bit of a rabbit hole. You know how that goes. You read one article and then another, and suddenly you're 10 studies deep and wondering if you need to go live in a bubble somewhere. For me, the rabbit hole was microplastics. Now, these tiny particles are everywhere. And the more I read, the worse it gets. At first, I thought, okay, easy fix. Stop microwaving leftovers in plastic, ditch the bottled water, and avoid eating off anything that says made in China. Done. Problem solved. Yeah, not even close. Turns out the majority of microplastics we ingest don't come from bottles at all. They come from the air we breathe. So every deep breath, congratulations, you just ingested another dose of microscopic garbage. And then I found studies suggesting microplastics might be linked to declining testosterone in men. Now, that one got my attention, because if modern life isn't busy enough trying to kill us, apparently it also wants to turn us all into soy boys. So fantastic. Now, scientists have literally found microplastics inside blood clots, and yes, that means a higher risk of heart attacks and strokes.
White ones, we've got clear ones.
Tons of microplastics wash ashore all over the world every day. And now for the first time, scientists in the Netherlands have detected microplastic pollution in human blood.
All the microplastics and other plastics we are exposed to, we inhale and we ingest, that actually, you know, there's so much plastic that it can even enter our bloodstream.
The Dutch study on blood samples from healthy adults detected tiny plastic particles in 80% of people.
And it's not just your cardiovascular system either. They've also found it in the brain, which, let's be honest, explains about half of the comments section that I see on YouTube these days.
And we start with a new study on the impact of microplastics, which found human brains contained as much plastic as a plastic spoon, which is up 50% from 2016.
What we're finding is in the brains of people who have dementia, there's actually higher amounts of microplastics. So essentially, these microplastics, or these tiny little particles of plastics, are crossing the blood-brain barrier, and they're depositing into our brain. And they're being correlated with increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases like dementia, possibly linked to autism and other things that affect the brain. There's also evidence showing increased risk of stroke, and increase inflammation overall. So I have always said, listen, there's no way to avoid microplastics entirely unless you're going to live in a bubble. And by the way, that bubble couldn't be a plastic bubble. It'd have to be a glass bubble.
And if you didn't already have enough to worry about, like a plastic spoon worth of microplastic in your body, here's a fun one: missile launches. Yeah, apparently every time a rocket goes up, it sprays microplastics into the atmosphere. The nearly 40,000 missiles that were fired into Israel during the war, well, each one of those helped pollute the planet just a little bit more. So it's not just Israel's problem anymore, it's your problem too. So thanks, Hamas. Appreciate the global contribution. So avoiding plastic forks isn't going to cut it. You can't exactly hold your breath the rest of your life, which kind of left me wondering if there's any way to actually get this junk out of my body. Turns out there is. And it's not from some high-tech lab, it's from kimchi. Scientists found a bacteria in kimchi called Bacillus pumilus that can actually degrade toxic BPA plastics, which means while you're eating fermented cabbage, those microbes are basically running search and destroy missions inside your body. Even RFK Jr. was on Fox and Friends swearing by kimchi.
Mainly meat and then fermented vegetable, anything fermented. So a lot of kimchi and all kinds of fermented vegetables. And it's really, I would say it's dramatically changed my, everything.
I figure if it worked for him, maybe it's worth a look. Now, full disclosure, I've never been a fan of kimchi. I don't want my fridge smelling like a science experiment just to get the benefits. So that's where Brightcore Nutrition comes in. They're not some sketchy supplement startup. They're a trusted American company making clean, non-GMO, all-natural products. And now they've bottled the power of kimchi into a capsule called Kimchi One. No cabbage, no chili paste, no funky smell, just all the probiotics, live enzymes, and antioxidants you get from kimchi. Over 900 strains of good bacteria without the taste. On top of potentially helping with microplastic detox, Kimchi 1 also supports digestion, reduces bloating, boosts energy, strengthens immunity, and even improves skin and hair. So it's basically kimchi without all the baggage. So here's the deal. Go to mybrightcore.com/Chuck and use promo code Chuck for 25% off. Or if you want the best deal, pick up the phone and call 888-927-6882. When you call, you can get up to 50% off plus free shipping. And if you're one of the first 100 people to call, you'll also get a free bottle of vitamin D3. But remember, you only get that 50% off when you actually call the number. So again, that number is 888-927-6882. So look, we can't stop modern life from trying to kill us between seed oils and social media, and now missiles sprinkling microplastics into the stratosphere. The deck is kind of stacked against you, but we can at least fight back. Kimchi 1 is one small, simple step that can keep you from feeling like a human Ziploc bag. So hit the link or call now. Your heart, your brain, and maybe even your testosterone will thank you.